Hi everyone, here's a tutorial for using Google Forms for education. So what you're going to do to open a new form is within your Drive, you can click New, and then it's in the More section, Google Forms. What you might want to use Google Forms for is something like survey questions, small assessments, exit tickets, things like that. So I'm going to show you a couple different things you can do with it. It's very user-friendly and pretty simple to navigate, so hopefully you can experiment on your own as well and figure out what the best way for you to use it is. So the first thing I'm going to do is give it a title up here. And I'm going to prepare the first one as a teacher librarian. So I'm going to do a reading survey so I can see what kind of books I might want to add to my collection. So as you can see, as soon as I clicked here, it automatically gave the same title. In the description, I'm going to put, we're looking to buy some new books for the Learning Commons. What do you like to read? So the first question that I'm going to make is I want to know the age group of the students doing the survey. So I'm going to make it be, what grade are you in? And I have some choices here for the type of question. I can do multiple choice. I can do check boxes, which would look like this and give them the option to click more than one. Obviously, I don't want this because you're not in more than one grade. A drop down, I would provide them with options. They would select one. So I could use that for this purpose as well. And of course, I can give them the option of typing it with either the short answer or the paragraph. For this purpose, I'm going to stick to multiple choice. So I'm going to do kindergarten and grade 1 together. To get to a new option, I'm just going to press my enter key, which you can't see me doing, but that's how I get to a new option. Grade 2 or grade 3 I will put together. Grade 4 I'm going to do by itself, and then I'm going to do grade 5 or grade 6. And grade 7 or grade 8. I'm going to make this required because I want to know what grade they're in. So what that means is when they're doing the survey, they cannot leave this blank. They have to tell me what grade they're in. I don't want to add other because I don't want to give them the choice of adding their own option. So now I need another question, so I'm going to press plus. And I'm going to say, how often do you read? I might want to consider the desires of certain students more than others, depending on what my goal is for this survey. So that's what I'm going to make this question. I'm going to give this, I'm going to make this be multiple choice as well, just to streamline it for my students. So the options I'm going to give them are every night, for at least half an hour, every night for less than half an hour, every other day, once a week, not very often. And what I realized after I typed this is I actually want to be more specific in my question, so I can go back and edit, and I'm going to change it to how often do you read at home? And then I'm not going to make this say night. I'm going to make it say every day because they may be reading after school and I don't want to confuse my younger students. Again, I want this to be required, so I'm going to click that as well. So then I'm going to add another question. In this question, I'm going to say, what type of books do you like? And I'm going to give them some choices here: sports, nonfiction, novels, joke books, animal books, comic books or graphic novels, adventure stories, historical fiction. The list goes on and on. But this to them now shows them that I'm not looking for a specific author or something like that. I'm looking for the type of book. So in this, I am going to select short answer so that they can write in what they want. And I'm not going to make this required because I'm going to give them the option of answering either this or the next question or both. So then I'm adding another question, and I'm going to make it, do you have any favorite authors or book series that you really like, or that you would like to see in our Learning Commons? And this one as well, I'm going to give a short answer so that they can type in what they want. And I'm not going to make it required. Like I said before, I want them to have the choice. So I can change the look of this a little bit as well by changing the color. So my school's colors are blue, so I'm going to do that. And my survey is ready to go. So this is where it gets a little bit confusing. This eyeball up here, if you hover over it, says preview. It's actually not a preview. It's how to access your actual survey. So when you click on that, this is the link that you'll want to copy and send out to students, either via their email or perhaps putting it on your teacher librarian blog, whatever you want to do. So then they can come in, they can select their grade. This student reads a lot every day. They like adventure stories and funny novels, and they really like the Dear Dumb Diaries survey or series. And they're going to submit it. Another student comes along with the link. They're in kindergarten. They read every day, but for less time because they're reading with mom and dad. They like animal books and sports books. And they really like the Franklin books. And they also like Little Critter. And they submit it. So myself as the teacher librarian, I can go back in here and now you'll see my responses. I've had 2 responses. So I can click on that and it shows me the percentage of who has answered this. So right away I can see none of my intermediate students have answered this survey at all, so I might want to go to them and see what they're interested in. I can see the answer to my second question about how often my students are reading, and I've got this information here as well. I can also use this green button, and I'm going to create a new spreadsheet because I don't want to add it to one that I already have. And now I have all my responses saved in a spreadsheet so that I can go back and look at it. It updates by itself. They are now automatically linked, so every time someone does another survey, I go in and do this. Maybe I was able to convince my intermediates to go do it. They don't read very often, but they like the world record books and romance novels, and some of them like vampire books. And they really want me to buy Twilight, even though I'm not really sure I will. And they like the world record books. So as you can see, if I go back in here, it's a little bit lagged, but there it was. It popped up and it tells me now that a 7 or 8 has answered, and that's what they are interested in me adding to our collection. So that's one way that you could use Google Forms. There are several other ways. So another one that you may choose to do is from that original Google Form page. I might want to use one of the templates they've given me. The exit ticket one is quite good. And I might not even need to change it. I might just need to add something a little bit specific. So exit ticket, soil lesson number 3. Okay, and all I want them to do is put in their name. So I've given them short answers so they can type in their name, their email, and this is all the form that it comes with, but I also could change it if I want to. One important thing that they learned in class: did they feel prepared for today's class? So perhaps they didn't do their homework from the day before, or they missed a week of class because they were on vacation, and that's something that you want to get feedback about so that you realize where their gaps are and why they have those gaps, and what would help make today's lesson more effective. So it's maybe getting some feedback for yourself as a teacher using this form, and also what they've learned. And the same thing applies, that I would click on the preview, send out the link, they would fill it out, and in the responses I can see who said what. One of the other formats that they have prepared for you, so you wouldn't even need to do, is an assessment one. And it's not in English for part of it. So here you would add your description of what the assessment is. And then obviously your student would need to put in their name and their email. The little red star means that I made that mandatory. And here's where I would put in my quiz question. So my first question, I'm going to make it multiple choice, and I'm going to plug in my correct answer there. My second question has its check boxes, so it might mean that they need to check off this, this, and this. But again, you can go edit that. You don't need to have 3 correct answers. My third question, I'm going to give them a reading, and I would like them to write about the reading. So I might put a question here, and then they're required to type in what they want. And again, later I can go review their responses in this tool and create a spreadsheet if I want to organize their work that way. One more really great use for Google Forms is for anecdotals. So how you would set that up, especially for learning skills in primary, this can be really great. So I'm going to start a blank one. And mainly I'm going to use this for learning skills. So as soon as I click here, it gives it the same thing. I don't really need to give it a description because this is for my personal use. So here I'm going to put students. And you could use multiple choice. I actually prefer check boxes because sometimes it's more than one student demonstrating a behavior, and I want to track it for all of them without having to do a form for each kid. So I'm putting in my sample students here. And I'm going to make that required because I need to say which student it is that's doing it. Then here I've got the learning skill. So you would need, as for growing success, responsibility, independent work, collaboration, initiative, self-regulation, and I'm missing one. Maybe you have to Google it. Oh, organization. Okay, so I'm going to make this multiple choice, but I'm not going to make it required. Sometimes when I'm taking notes on the fly, I don't know offhand which learning skill it falls under, and I just want to document the behavior that I'm seeing. So then I'm going to put one more, and I'm just going to put comments, just something very basic there. I'm going to put paragraphs so that I have the option to write longer, but I don't need to. This I am going to make required because I do want to make sure that I have something there and I'm not just clicking on a student's name. So once I'm done with that, I now have this document all the time, and there are several ways that you can access this. through your drive, I have it saved as an icon right on my phone and my iPad. So you might choose to do that. You might choose to leave it open on your computer. You see students doing something in the class and you just walk over to your computer and quickly fill this out. So I saw student B and student D. They were collaborating really well together. On their inquiry project, making sure each student had a turn to use the Chromebook to type. And I'm going to submit that. So I noticed that they were doing that. Then later in math class, I noticed student A. I'm not actually really sure what it falls under right now, and I'm trying to keep circulating to help students out, so I don't want to take my time and look up which one it will go in. So I'm just going to skip over that part, and I'm going to type struggling with difficult multiplication, shut down instead of asking for help, did not allow other students to give suggestions. So now when I'm in this, I see that I've done 2 responses. And so I could look at this data and say, I have a lot of notes for student A, B, and D, but I haven't recorded very much for student C. If you think about even doing this for 2 students a day, by the time you get to report cards, you would have so many comments that were very specific that you could give feedback. I can notice here that I've only talked about collaboration, so I might want to spend a day looking at who's working independently and who's not, or who is very well organized or something like that. And then I've got my comments here. The easiest way to look at this data would be through the spreadsheet. Again, I'm going to create a new one. I don't want to add it to one I already have, because I can then sort based on what I want. So I can, right now it's going to be sorted chronologically because that's the default, but I could also organize it by the student names so that all of student A's comments end up together, all of student B's comments end up together, all of student C's comments end up together, etc. So that when I'm going to do the report cards, I can look at all of student A's work and what I've observed about them, and then I can move on to student B, etc. So that is one really great way that you can use Google Forms to help with your own assessment. But as I showed you earlier, it can also be used for student assessments or surveys or sample questions like that. Hopefully you found this helpful, and good luck using Google Forms in your class.